Hi everyone, welcome to the Idaho Authors Showcase. My name is Janet Ravenscraft and I will be your host today. This show will be about authors and their stories. We'll find out about why they write and why this book. And then how they write. Do they use a computer, a laptop? Are they longhand? Are they recording? When they write. Are they writing daily? Do they set a time? Maybe it's the middle of the night. And what they write. Is it fiction or nonfiction? Do they like romance or sci-fi? Motivational or is it scary? Thank you all for joining us today. Now get a cup of something, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Idaho Authors Showcase. My name is Janet Ravenscraft and I will be your host today. So my guest is Oliver Dahl. He is a senior at Renaissance High here in Boise, and he has actually written 3 books and self-published. So I met Oliver about a year ago. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I know, I'm excited to have you. So your book, your latest book I should say, is Lies. Why did you write this book? Tell us why and why this book.
Yeah, awesome. Lies is a historical fiction novella, pretty short, and it is from the point of view of Ann Putnam Jr. She was an 11-year-old during the time of the Salem witch trials. What's interesting about her is she was one of the leading accusers. A lot of the times Salem witch trials, historical fictions will focus on the people who were accused and their struggle and that kind of thing. And so I thought it would be interesting to look at it from the other perspective, the people doing the accusing. A lot of what inspired me to write it was my interest in the Salem witch trials.
I was just going to say, have you always had an interest? Is that something you...
I've always thought it was interesting. Just kind of the possibility of there being like magic that happened in history, and so that kind of enchanted me to it. But I think something that, like the straw on the camel's back, that made me want to write it was, I think freshman year our history textbook had all of 1 paragraph about the Salem witch trials, and I thought that was crazy for a time period that hugely shaped like our modern judicial system, the idea of innocent until proven guilty. There's just so many aspects that the Salem witch trials really changed and inspired that affect today.
And they had one paragraph?
Yeah, it was not very much. I was like, what? They're just leaving out, and not just an important time period, but one that's really interesting too.
Well, it has, there's so many aspects to it So, when you started writing this book, was it, what is your process on writing? Are you, first of all, I'm going to make an assumption here, but do you do on computer, laptop, or are you a longhand? Recording? I mean, what is your preferred method?
I definitely type on the computer. Yeah. I think, for Lies, I actually wrote it on my iPad on the screen for that. But generally speaking, I definitely write on computers.
Computer. I know. My handwriting is horrible, so I don't even go there. So it was just I thought I would do longhand first of all, and I got into it, and I was just spending so much more time, and then I turn around and put it on the computer, and I go, why am I wasting this time actually? And then I can't read my writing, so I like that part. So in Lies is your 3rd book. You also have 2 other books. So when did you write these 2 books?
The Dreamers I wrote in 2010 for a program called NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writers Month. It takes place every November, and it challenges writers all over the world, of all ages, to try to write an entire novel in a month.
I was going to say, I know it's a short period of time.
Yeah, so the adult program challenges adults to write 50,000 words in the month of November. I wrote The Dreamers for the youth program, and I think their automatically set goal is 30,000 words.
Okay.
And I did end up writing 30,000 words that is now The Dreamers in the month of November.
Wow. And that was, 2010?
Yeah.
So how old are you then?
I was 12.
You were 12. 12, and then you turned around and published that through that? How did
Yeah, so one of the prizes for winning NaNoWriMo or completing your goal was you could get, I think it was 3 proof copies of your book through a Create Space. And so that was actually a big part of my motivation in wanting to write it, was just the idea of being able to hold a tangible copy of something that I'd written. And so once I'd finished it, I did some editing, put together a cover, and then got my proof copies, and then from there I went on to edit a lot more.
Isn't it interesting about the whole edit? So with my book, I had an editor, I had a proofreader, and then I read it.
Mm-hmm.
And even after the proof, I read it again.
Yeah.
And then I was amazed when I went to go reprint it the next time of how many more edits I had in there.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, those little words and sentences that you just overlook.
Mm-hmm.
I was amazed myself, in that process for me. So 12 when you did Dreamers. Mm-hmm. Then when did you write Nightmares?
Yep, the Nightmares.
I
was 14, so I think freshman in high school. No. Mm-hmm. I was in 8th grade and then published it as a freshman in high school.
So that gave you also the opportunity to learn about Create Space, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that trial run was definitely introduced me to the world of self-publishing, the possibilities that it had, and because my end goal was wanting to hold my copies in print and be able to hold that, I wanted to make my books as high quality as possible. If I wasn't going to pursue traditional publishing, I wanted my books to be every aspect as high quality
as possible
as traditionally published books, so it could be something that I was proud of.
So let's talk about book covers, because I know with my book cover it took me forever. I think it took me longer to do my book covers.
Yeah,
so for these two, was that always that vision you had?
It wasn't. I think when I was trying to put together a cover, because I was very excited about that aspect of it.
I was going to say, at 12, it's like, how cool is that? So.
I was just kind of sketching different ideas and came across the stock photo of the D on fire, and it was actually that image that inspired the appearance of the flaming letter D within the book. So the cover actually preceded the story in some ways, which is interesting.
Well, I know, like I said, I've talked to a number of authors myself, and the book cover can take you, sometimes it can take you, a long time or longer than it did to write the book itself. And like I said, I went through a number of them. I think I probably had 5 or 6 different ones before I actually decided on mine. So I like those. Those are very...
I'm proud of how they turned out.
Yeah, they did. So exactly that portion of it. So I admire the fact that you understand and you picked up, and I think part of that, you and I had that conversation like probably a year ago about Create Space. You were the first one that actually introduced me to Create Space, and so of all the intricacies that go with it, they're like I said, I tell people I'm technically challenged, and you know that. So you have a couple other businesses going too that are spin-offs from writing, aren't they?
Yeah.
Or from writing and from networking, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do social media networking for a few local companies here in Boise. So I schedule and write Facebook posts for local businesses and try and help them grow their fan base and their customer base on Facebook. And then I also have a company that I started called Event Card Contact Compiling, and I take the contact information from people's business cards that they've collected in networking, and I put them all into like an Excel spreadsheet so that people can import them into their email programs and hugely increase their newsletter subscriptions, and it's been great for a lot of people.
Well, and Oliver helped me with mine, because it was one of those things, you can have all that information, you can have those stacks of cards, and put them to work, get them in a uniform space, and so I can appreciate that, and I think because you've grown up with computers, they just make sense to you.
Yeah.
And for people like me, that wasn't something I appreciate, and I utilize the expertise of those around me on that side. So on Ann Putnam, when did you write this one then? This has been out a couple years still, hasn't it?
Yeah, I wrote this one for NaNoWriMo in 2013, I believe. So it was another one written in a month. It was a lot shorter, so it was less of a challenge. I think the month before, so in October, I did a ton of research.
I was just going to say that.
I spent days looking through websites and books and collecting information, looking at characters and all the different things that were playing a role during the time period. And then the next month, just sat down and wrote it.
Now you're still in the youth program, right?
Yeah.
So what are the ages on the youth program?
I think
up to
up
18,
until 18.
18 on that side of it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and so we'll be back in a few minutes. Thank you. Well, welcome back to the Idaho Author Showcase. And I'm with my guest here is Oliver Dahl, and we're talking about his book Lies, and he also has 3 books out. And so, Oliver, tell me, have you always wanted to write? Has that been something you've been doing since you were, you wrote your first book or published it at 12, so what, when you were like 8 or 6?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I've always been a writer, I guess, but I don't know that I've always, or had always seen myself as a writer. I remember as early as kindergarten, I was drawing pictures and adding little captions to them on printer paper and then stapling all the pages together like 20 times to make little books. And so that was fun, but yeah, I think around middle school when my first book came out, probably the year before, I was like, I always enjoyed reading. That was something that I loved to do, and so I thought it'd be fun to write the kind of book that I would want to read.
Seriously.
And so as I discovered that publishing it could be a possible opportunity, I started looking into it more and realized that it was something
viable.
that could happen.
Well, and like I said, now anybody can publish, so which is nice. We don't have to. So we've established that you're definitely self-published. So that portion of it. So what would you say are the best things about self-publishing? What would you give recommendations for the audience as far as how would what would be their steps?
I really enjoyed self-publishing. I liked the amount of control that it offered me. I could make the cover. I had a much larger percentage in terms of royalties than traditional publishers give. I could control distribution, order copies. I think one of the main benefits of self-publishing is the print-on-demand service, which means that anytime anybody orders a copy, they run a copy off the press. So you don't have to worry about keeping track of stock or anything like that. Amazon never runs out, they just print more.
They just print more.
Yeah.
I was talking to an author this morning about that, because she was asking me, I go, you know what? They get them out, so they either have to have some system set up, so that print-on-demand system, and then I know even for myself in reordering that they're very quick in getting 100 books out. So they definitely sounds like they have filled a void out there and allowing so many more people to self-publish or find a way, instead of waiting for a publisher to tell us that we can or cannot write a book or our book is acceptable or not. We don't have to have that anymore. So I think that's I think it's genius of them to put that side of it. So your process, we kind of talked about that. Do you write every day? Do you write, in the morning? Do you set a time? Are you a middle of the night type person? What's your...
A little bit of everything. I surprise myself all the time. I don't usually find the time or make the time to write every day, even though I should. I usually do write on the weekends, in the morning most of the time. Anytime that I have kind of planned out the next step, and that's always a challenge. I think if I could succinctly sum up my writing process, I think I would say that I have different steps. Like I imagine different scenes that I eventually want to write through across the course of a book.
You do like an outline, or does that work?
Not always.
Not always.
sometimes I'll storyboard or something like that. So I'll have point A, I know I want to write. Point B, this scene sounds like it'd be fun and would be a good addition to the book. C, D, E, and I have no idea how to get from point A to point B.
See, that's the part that just amazes me, that authors that can do that, they don't know how their story's going to end. It develops as it goes along.
So that's kind of what makes writing so fun, is you get to follow these characters as they adventure from point A to point B and see how they go through these series of events and how they change and grow. And
do you write different endings to your story, or have you ever done that?
I think most of the time, by the time I'm that far along, I usually have an idea in mind. So then it's getting from wherever I am there to point Z.
I love that. And so, writing. So do you have? These are what considered sci-fi?
Yeah. This middle grade science fiction. It's
middle grade science fiction.
They've been really popular with middle school students, and
well, you're a middle schooler then.
Yeah, it's always really fun to. I got an email back from a kid the other day saying that he got one of the books in elementary school and he didn't like it, but he gave it another try in middle school and said he loved it, and so that was just really fun to hear.
So it's almost a teen, but it's the middle.
Yeah.
So that middle.
Yeah, that's that little range there.
So do you have? Is that a series? Because I know. So do you have? Are you going to write more in that series?
That's a secret.
Secret. Oh.
I have ideas for a third book, but I'm working on a few other things right now that I'm more excited about.
Oh, so see, it's a secret. I love that. Yeah. So what would be your recommendation to young authors, to those that those that do have that drive, that have that story, what would be your recommendation? How do they get started?
I think I tell them just to start writing. If you have an idea, just go for it. Try and complete a first draft. I think the writing advice that I give the most is to just have a first draft. It doesn't have to be good. In fact, I often encourage it to be bad. Let yourself fail, be awful, be horrible.
Just get it down.
Yeah. As soon as, if you're writing a time period romance, you can have a dragon attack the city if that helps you get from point C to point D. Just at the end of the first draft, you have something complete, something to work with. And so you can edit and rewrite and chip away at this big block and turn it into a statue or something awesome.
On that side of it. So what is you were just talking about that, your secrets. So how do you pick your next subject, or do you stay in the same genre? Because this is more of a historical education.
Historical fiction.
Fiction, so. Okay, because it's still in that.
Yeah.
People still haven't quantified the Salem witch trial yet.
Yeah.
And so are you going to stay in this one, or you want to try another genre? Or?
My next book is kind of a more contemporary fiction, along the lines of the works of John Green or The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I love those books. And so that's kind of influenced the direction that I want to head. But then a lot of my other ideas that I have saved up,
yes.
they're
that's the truth.
Along the lines of those ones. I like being able to incorporate elements of fiction or fantasy or science fiction into the real world. So even in Lies, it's a historical fiction. I managed to fit witches doing magic in 1692 Massachusetts, and I think that's a lot of fun.
Why not? It's your book. I think if one thing that one person told me when I was writing is it's your story. You can do whatever, and especially with mine's a nonfiction, so it's basically about a period of my life. But it's my story, and everybody has a story. That's what I like about this show, is that we can hear each individual story of why they do what they do, and where it's taking them. So that is now. Oliver is a senior at Renaissance High. I said that before. He has less than 90 days before he graduates, and so it's congratulations on that. So what are your plans for the next year? What are you going to do? What are you going to do?
After I graduate, my family, or my parents and I, have a trip planned to go to Europe. We're going to go to France and Italy, and I'm really excited for that.
That's awesome.
The rest of the summer is just going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. And then after that, I'm going to be writing the next book.
There you go.
Yep, I've got a good start on it, so I'll ideally be finishing and publishing that book before I leave and serve a 2-year mission for my church in January, February.
On that side of it. So sounds like you got a busy next 6-8 months.
Yeah.
Or well, I guess it's about a year. Oh no, it's about 8 months.
Yeah.
10 months on that side of it. Excited on that side. So that's what you're going to do for the next year. We talked about processes a little bit of how you want to, how you write and your recommendation. What makes you want to write? What is that about it? Why do you write? What does that give you?
Well, like I mentioned before, I always liked reading, so being able to write the kind of book that I would enjoy reading, I think that's just a lot of fun. I think another part of it is being able to twist reality, so having books set in the real world and then having a dragon attack the city, I think that's fun. It's a way to exercise control and kind of be silly and
kind of cover all those genres. So do you have an intent, or do you want to write a nonfiction book? Is that something you think that's out there, or are you always just going to stay in?
I like fiction for right now.
That's it, and that's a great place to be on that side of it. All right, thank you so much. We're going to take a quick break here, and we'll see you in a few minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Idaho Author Showcase. And my guest today is Oliver Dahl. And so, Oliver, let's talk a little bit about, I felt this, and so I'm talking is about how vulnerable. Do you get that vulnerable part when you get ready to have a book published? It's your writing, but, you know, tell us how you feel about that. Does that bother you at all, or do you think about it, or?
Well, for Lies at least, I had quite a few beta readers and people who read it before it came out, and so being able to hear really good things back from them, that was a relief. Being able to
that first person that reads it, it's like, okay, what are they going to say?
So to have that reaction be positive was an immense relief. With the Dreamers, it was kind of a similar thing. In an attempt to advertise the Dreamers when it first came out, I posted to a social network called Imgur, I'm not sure.
Something like that.
Yeah. And it ended up getting like 250,000 views when I put the book on free, or as free on the Amazon Kindle. And so it was downloaded like 4,000 times.
Wow.
And ended up getting in like the top 100 free books on Amazon, which was awesome. And then the next few days, a couple of reviews started coming in, and a lot of them were negative because I hadn't done enough editing on it. So a lot of these reviews were pretty brash, pretty mean, but they all had good points, and so the next several months I spent sending the book out to other people, editing it again myself, and so pretty soon I had republished the book, fixed all the problems that people had pointed out with it, and so I think it's important to turn that negative criticism into something positive.
Well, and I think that's part of it. It's part of learning. I mean,
I
bet you a lot of those people didn't realize you were writing, self-publishing at 12 either. So their expectations had to have been, may not have been if they would have known that. Because I would be much less critical of a 12-year-old who actually wrote a story and published it than I would be of a, an adult or just to write a story, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, it takes a lot out. I know that's that vulnerable part. I know when I published mine, it was about me. It was about my life, from when I felt I was invisible, and so when I went to print it, it was like that. When I knew it was in print, it was like, oh no.
Yeah, opening yourself up.
Yeah, I really, and it was interesting for me just to go through that process because it was more like, what is that? So, anyway, I appreciate you coming in.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, I have been impressed since I met you that you have 3 books. You've written 3 books and you've published them, and you haven't even graduated from high school yet.
Nope.
So, so you have a great future set up for you. And so, tell us what you want to do. Tell us, give my audience your best advice. Advice to new authors.
All right. Advice for new authors. Go write that book. Get that first draft done. Doesn't have to be good. Make it bad on purpose if it helps you finish it. Be passionate about what you're writing about, and that will shine through.
On that side of it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Oliver. I appreciate your time. And I want to thank everyone who has joined us today. I really appreciate that, and I hope you'll come back and for future shows. And so I'll say goodbye. Have a great day.